Let me see what I got. Ford. Ford. So we got some Carl Edwards NASCAR. That's not that bad. So this is the Ford Fusion. So that's another vehicle that this game didn't have, was the Ford Fusion. So the only way to have a Fusion is on, sadly, a race car. Okay, let's see. Here we go. So we got the 1971 Ford Mach 1. To me, this is just me. Obviously, there's other people with their likes, but just for me as an individual, I find this particular one hideous. This is hideous. I never care for this body style, and then the subsequent styling after this year, it just kept getting uglier. Like Mustang just kept getting uglier. I mean, it was just not. It's just not a nice thing. It just looked ugly, man. I'm sorry. The ones before it were way better. Way better. Let's go ahead and look here. Oh, here we go. So this is one of those cars that I raced against with my Camaro. Think about it. This is technically a legendary kind of vehicle. I mean, at its time, this was a top competitor in the racing circuits for Ford. I mean, to be able to beat this with my Camaro the way I did, I thought was just such an accomplishment, you know? And like I said, they were racing against a Ferrari of that time, mid to late 1960s. So that Ferrari was kicking ass back then. But also you had the Ford GT40. That was another one that was on the circuit. And I was racing that with my Camaro. So to be able to beat that car. So it's like the GT40 beat Ferrari. And Ferrari was a dominant thing at a point in time. And then the GT40 came into play and then started whooping some tail. So to have the video game, I know it's a video game, but it's like to sit down and put the amount of hours I put in. I mean, it was such a victory that it was just such an, like, memorable for me. Here's one of those rally cars for Ford Focus. Like, I think this is the only way you can get the RS, but so yeah, that was pretty cool. Pretty good horsepower for this setup at 309, and then your torque's at 393. So this was pretty good. Only 1,230 kilograms. So this is a vehicle I know does pretty good on rally sports and shit. Oh, look at this. A regular 2006 Ford GT without the stripes. I believe there was a setup where, yeah, it was like telling me, hey, this is the one without the stripes. So obviously a midnight blue metallic. That's actually not a bad blue. Like I said, I'm not wild about blue. But that one there, that's pretty nice. So the 2006 Ford Focus ST. I remember when this one came out, because I remember the very first Focus, and then later you had like this one. So this one was a nice little sporty thing. If I'm not mistaken, there are a decent amount of them out there that had this particular color. I'm not wild about orange, but there are times I'm like, man, that thing just be popping, boy. Oh, here we go. So the 2007 Ford Mustang GT Coupe Premium. What does that mean? No, not sure. This would be the only way I would have it, is black, of course. But it was cool to see. I remember when Ford first brought this out, and I was like, dude, it's trying to look like the old Mustang. I gotta give it to him. Like, it came out all right. I definitely can say that I would prefer this body style over the ones just before it, of course. Like, my brother has the one that was before this one, and I'm not wild about that one at all. Which I actually had that body style, but in a specific type of vehicle, which we'll see here shortly. So this one, let's see, as a premium, I don't know what that really means. This was 291 horsepower at 310 foot-pounds of torque. Oh, so this is the actual limited spec 2 test car of the Ford GT40. Oh, look at that. I believe this was on the cover of the game. Yeah. The GT40 was the one on the cover of the game. And, yeah, that was pretty cool. I believe it's white, though, on the cover. No, wait a minute. Isn't it blue? It's probably blue. But this one, of course, is black, which for me makes me happy because I like it black. Love that shit. I think almost any car looks good black. This here is a Grand Touring Garage 1970 Ford Mustang Trans Cammer. SEMA show winner of Gran Turismo Award of 2009. See, now here's like a nice, like, I like this model. So this 1970 model, you can see the difference between that one and then the Mach 1 from 1971. It's a big difference if you ask me. This one, the body lines are, I think, a hell of a lot better. Hell of a lot better. I believe this body styling is way more superior than to that Mach 1 we were just looking at. So that's another thing. It's like, yeah, this looks nice too. Ford Standard. The Ford GT 2005 No Stripes Metallic. So this one is the standard version, and obviously we saw that there was a premium one. And this sitting at 533 horsepower with 485 foot-pounds of torque. So if I'm not mistaken too, like, the engine that they had in these were technically from the pickup truck that they had, that was the Ford Lightning, just with a supercharger on it. So if I'm not mistaken, this is 533 horsepower due to a supercharger. So it was nice. The only thing that's bad about, that reminds me, the only thing that's bad about this car is, God forbid that you park in a normal parking spot, which most parking spots are pretty narrow. So this vehicle is a little wide. It's not too small, but it's got its width. The problem is you won't be able to get out of that car that easy because the roof of the car has a piece that's with the door. So when you open the door, that piece is there, like it's there. Okay. So essentially what it is, your best bet is to park in a spot where you can open that door all the way, because if not, you're gonna have a tough time getting in and out of that son of a bitch. So that's one of the things I'm like kind of like, oh, I don't know why they did that, but at the same time I do understand. It's just in a practical sense for someone just to have this vehicle as a daily driver, because this can be a daily driver. This is not one of those cars that can't be a daily driver. Unlike other exotic, this is still ultimately a Ford. Okay, it has a regular Ford motor. It's got regular Ford parts. Some of the interior parts are just off of regular Fords. This is not a hard vehicle to just have as a daily driver. This can be a daily driver. Like how a Corvette is a daily driver, this actually can be. Now, body-wise, I don't know if that's necessarily easy to deal with when it comes to, like, can you just get it fixed that easily on cosmetically, or if something happens to hit you and you have a dented quarter panel, I don't know. That's the part that I'm not aware of. But when it comes to just parts, like, obviously you can just get an easy, oh, I need an alternator, boom. I need a starter, boom. It's not gonna be hard to get that. This is not like, this is why I would rather have this. Like, I'm not a Ford guy, but if I had to choose between this or like a Lambo or Ferrari, I would take this any day. Not just because it's an American car, okay? Even though I'm American, don't mean that. It's the idea of the readily available parts that you can get for this thing. Compared to a Lamborghini and a Ferrari, those parts aren't easy. That's number one. Plus, they're expensive as fuck. That's number two. So yeah, hands down, I'd rather have this over a fucking Ferrari or Lambo any day. It's a 2003 Ford Focus. I believe, yeah, this is like the one my mom had. But my mom had a little sports package, so it had like a kind of little ground effects. I don't know what type of wheels, and then it had like this little wannabe spoiler thing that was like in the middle of the hatch, kind of going below. Yeah, I think it was like below the headlights. Yeah. So this was it was an aight car. She had it for a decent amount of time. Talking about the Ford Lightning. Here's the 2003 SVT F-150 Lightning. Apparently a pretty fast truck. I mean, in this case, they put it at a 367 horsepower at 436 foot-pounds of torque. This being a regular small cab with the side step bed. I mean, they got it at 2,132 kilograms. So it's still a heavy bastard, but apparently this was fast. So think about it. This is the engine with the supercharger. That's what's in the Ford GT. They took this engine for that. But yeah, that Ford Lightning's pretty cool. That truck made an appearance in that first Fast and Furious also. It was red and it was carrying all the parts that they were going to use for that Supra that they were going to build. Now, here's the thing. Thinking about the word lightning deals with electricity, right? Well, Ford decided to bring back that name in an F-150 that was going to be full electric F-150, but it was going to be called the Lightning. So that kind of makes sense to me. I think that was... I give them credit on that one. That was a good idea to say, hey, if we're going to do a full electric truck, we got that name. We can use that. And apparently that bitch is going to be fast. And so far, just out of all the information that I was able to look at one point in time, I want to say I saw this maybe a month and a half ago. That truck will be the easiest one to get your hands on. As in, compared to everything else that's going to be electric as a truck goes. You know, the truck from Tesla, this other company that's coming around, and whatever Chevy might do. Like GM, General Motors is taking the Hummer name, and that's going to be an electric vehicle too. But out of everything, right? For the price range, for the price next to the performance you're going to get, hands down, the Ford Lightning is going to be the best one overall. Because you can get one for a reasonable price, and it's going to give you some good performance. Opposed to, like, for example, the Hummer, that's going to be a pricey son of a bitch. Don't get me wrong, I really like the look of that damn thing, and I'm hearing already the claims of the power it's going to have and stuff like that. We'll see once it finally comes out the market what they actually come out with, but as it stands, I gotta give credit to Ford. They're gonna go in a good direction, and they're gonna make a readily available F-150 Lightning electric truck for a reasonable price. Like, it's gonna be good. I'll give them props. That's gonna push everybody else to try to get better, you know. Now this is the old school 1998 rally car, the Ford Escort, which this is the only way you can get an Escort in this game. So this has a rally car, 290 horsepower, 350 foot-pounds of torque. That's a lot of torque in this little motherfucker. God damn, that's not bad. Yeah, that's a little badass. This little guy here, this is a funny car. The 1985 RS200. See, now that was a car I've never seen in my life until, like, Gran Turismo. Like, Gran Turismo is where I got introduced to cars that I didn't know existed. You know, like this. I didn't know there was an RS200. Last I remember, I believe that the RS200, like this type of car, was only in Europe. And that's why I didn't see it here in the United States. Because I didn't know that was a thing that Ford had, and I think Ford, Dodge, and Chevy, but mostly Ford and Chevy, both had vehicles that were only in other markets in the world, and they weren't even here and as an option to get here in the United States. This was one of them. So it's kind of a cool car. I thought that was kind of cool look. Here's another 2005 Ford GT, but it's the white with blue stripes. So that one's pretty nice. Then you had the 1969 OG GT40. One of the things I remember trying to figure out why they called it a GT40, like what was the reasoning behind the number, because of the height of the car. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then the sound of this car in this game is pretty interesting. But in here, it's like you got it with the Gulf. I remember that back in the day. Like, I only seen that gas station once. Like, then later I never saw it again. Like, it's just a thing that went away. But yeah, this old school here at 478 horsepower and 434 foot-pounds of torque. I remember that movie, the Ford versus Ferrari. I got that. That was an interesting movie. I'm wondering how much of that was real, how much of it wasn't. So yeah, that Ford versus Ferrari, man. There was parts in there where they were talking about, the gearbox burnt out on the one car or something like that. So it definitely showed that the early beginnings of Ford trying to deal with that car and having Shelby come around and try to make the car and deal with the team, and then having that one gentleman come around and race the car, which, you know, God rest his soul, that it sucked the way he ended up dying. But at the same time, if the vibe I get is that guy at least was in his element of learning the vehicle and trying to perfect the vehicle and stuff like that. But it does suck that it happened to die when just testing one of them out. I believe it was something to do with the brakes. Like the brake system was something about it was bad, but that's what it said in the movie. I didn't double check if that's exactly how the gentleman died, but it still sucks either way. Anyone dying from a car accident. But again, like I was gonna say, he unfortunately passed while doing something he loved. You know, and that's the one thing where I could sit there and say for myself, if I die in the process of doing something I love, then you lived the life. I mean, you were living. That means you were living. Unfortunately, yeah, it sucks that he died, but he died doing something he loved. He was in there, you know, dealing with his car and tweaking it. That was running in his blood to do that with these vehicles and shit, you know? Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like, I don't have anything that I'm doing that I love. So whenever I go, I don't know. Here's a 1998 Taurus. Okay, the Ford Taurus Show, the SHO. The model before this one was the first show that came around for the Taurus. That one I remember being a car that apparently was pretty badass for some reason. Like it was a pretty tough cookie. This one in particular, I'm not too much knowledgeable about this body show of this model, only the other one. So this one, this one's sitting at 227 horsepower with 223 foot-pound of torque. Not bad for a 98, I guess, as a front-wheel drive vehicle. I know I had a buddy of mine who had a Taurus, but it was the V6 that was just basic. There wasn't a show. So I don't know what was the actual difference in power, options, or whatever between a regular Ford Taurus next to a Ford Show. Let's see, the Ford Focus Rally Car of the 99. That one's pretty good. It doesn't look like they did much for that. Then a 2000, so this is a 2002 Ford GT. That's interesting. So this one, the displacement is at even smaller than that other one we were looking at. So this one's at 5,400 cc's. The other one was 5,409 cc's. And then the pickup truck was 5,411 cc's. Now here's a definite Ford that was not sold in the United States. This was only sold in Europe. I don't know if you say K-A or you say Ka. Or you just say K. It's a funny little thing. Here's taking one of the newer GTs and just putting that paint job to make it look like the old school one. So that's kind of cool. This one in particular has definitely got more power though, compared to the other ones. And then we got the 2002 Ford Focus RS model. That one was supposed to be a little more power, a little more performance. Like it's sitting at 210 horsepower with 214 foot-pounds of torque. It's not crazy numbers, but you know, it was alright. Yes. And then what else we got here? This is the limited spec. So this is like the Gran Turismo car. This is the one representing the game, if I'm not mistaken. Now here's a 2005 Ford Mustang GT. So this is the GT. So this is your basic GT. It's the V8 model. Okay. So it's sitting at a 4.6. So this is not even a 5.0. So that's the other thing. This is not even a 5.0 V8. And it's sitting at 285 horsepower with 305 foot-pounds of torque. This is a smaller V8. I think that's one of the reasons I was like a little disappointed with Ford when they brought out this new model. When I was like, why are you bringing? Where's your 5.0, dude? Come on, like that's your jam. It's the 5.0. Here we go. This is the 2000 Ford Mustang SVT Cobra R. So this is technically the body style that my brothers got, which is, I remember when this body style came out, I was like, eh. I was like, eh. And then later on, it was through a combination of a magazine and Gran Turismo that I got to see the SVT Cobra R. And I was like, okay, you know, it's the spoiler. I was like, meh. The way the front ground effects was meh. And then, you know, you just slap in the Cobra logo on the side there. I thought the hood was okay. Like this particular engine has a displacement of 5,409. So this is the same size as the engine in the Ford GT. This is what they put in this. But knowing by looking at these horsepower numbers, okay, that means this was a naturally aspirated motor. This didn't have a supercharger. So this is at 355 horsepower with 374 foot-pounds of torque. So that's the big difference there. So essentially they took the Ford Lightning engine and threw it in this. And that was it. There you go. Tweaked a little bit, tuned a little bit. There you go. I'm not wild about it. I'm not really wild about it. But that's Ford. So the Shelby, Shelby, I got two Shelby on this, on premium, the 1966 Shelby Cobra 427. That is a hell of a car, man. That little itty bitty thing with all that horsepower. An itty bitty thing, like weight wise, 1,068 kilograms. I mean, we're talking about a 427, okay? This thing's got 470 horsepower with 465 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, just that torque number for that little body. Let's be serious. That is a nutty thing. That is a nutty thing. Like, if you don't watch it, I think that car could cut loose way too easy. You could break traction way too easy on the rear end. Matter of fact, there's a gentleman near me who's got one of these. I believe it was blue, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it was like blue. And I barely could hear it. It was pretty low on the sound. I was like, that's never really heard one of those low in sound. And luckily we met up at one of the lights, and I said, "Hey man, that's a beautiful vehicle. What engine did you go with in it?" Because these can go with the 427, but there was also the 5.0s were in there and stuff like that. And I believe the 289 was in some of them. So it's not like they were always 427. And this gentleman, though, he went with a Chevy LS engine in his. And I was like, you know what? I don't blame him. He is one out of, I want to say a total of 3 that I've personally met. But there's probably way more out there. Probably somebody that might be watching this knows someone where in a lot of ways it's better having the LS over a Ford motor, because there's a hell of a lot more options on parts for an LS than they ever have been for Ford. Plus, to be able to combine certain parts, it's even easier on an LS than it would be on a Ford. I'm not saying Ford is like tremendously hard, but through conversations, there's been guys like, I remember one guy, he had an old pickup truck. I think it was an early 60s pickup truck. It was a Ford pickup truck with an LS. Like, I knew it was an LS. I walked up to it and I looked at it and I said, "That's not a Ford motor. That's an LS." And the guy's like, "You know what? It's just the hassle of dealing with a Ford motor, and then how easy it was to just deal with this. Like, I just want that simplicity." And I don't blame the guy. I mean, he was an older gentleman that, what the fuck do you want complicated shit for? You don't want anything complicated. You don't want to fucking sit there and be like, "Oh my God, I gotta bust my balls here and try to figure out this bullshit with it." No. Yeah, so this is definitely a car I believe I had way more than one. Like right here, I got 2 of them. But it's one with stripes, one without. I believe I had, back then on my old data, I think I had a total of 6. And that was through wins. Like, some of them were through wins, because there was a race, I believe so. I would have to double check. I believe there was a race where you could win the car. So I did that race a couple of times, I think. Oh boy, now here's Shelby of the standard cars. The 1966 Shelby Cobra 427. And this one's got a little convertible top on and shit. This one should be about the same big power, 427. Let's see. Big power is 470 horsepower with 465 foot-pounds of torque. I believe the other one was the same. So yeah, that's, oh my god, man. To think about that power on a little guy. Now this is Shelby trying to bring out their own specific car again. Yeah, that didn't really catch traction, did it? I only saw this for one brief moment. I didn't really hear talks about it and shit. For me personally, I think it look cool. It definitely looks cool. It's like trying to take the Cobra and upgrade it into a little more modern kind of thing, kind of, in a way. It says supercharged, but it's not that strong. I mean, that's only 309 horsepower with 281 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, what engine? I mean, this is a 4.0. I mean, what engine did they get supplied with? That is weak sauce. Maybe that's another reason it probably didn't catch any traction. I mean, like I said, it doesn't look bad. It didn't catch traction. Not like a 1965 Shelby GT350R. Look at that little guy. See, like, that's a better Mustang than the other one, too. See, 65 was okay, but once you get into the 69 model, that 68, 69, that's the ones I like a little bit more, but I do like this one. This one is okay. For this particular motor at only 296 horsepower, 319 foot-pounds of torque, it wasn't that powerful, of course. But it was light. It wasn't that heavy. I mean, what was this? 1,268. So for what it's worth, for what they were using it for, I know the competition. It was good. Like they were doing all right. Saleen. Oh my god, the Saleen S7. What I thought. This was a pretty cool car. I remember, oh man, what movie was that? I think it was called God Almighty with Jim Carrey. Like, this car popped up in that. That was, I think, just for a brief moment. Now, Mercury. Oh my god, I forgot they have this. The 1967 Mercury Cougar. The only Ford I really have a sweet spot for is this Mercury Cougar. Something about this Cougar, I don't know why I like it so much. I really don't. And I'm glad I got it black. But this here, I mean, I would rather have this over a Mustang any day. Even though it's the same chassis, if I'm not mistaken. But this is just better. The displacement, that's interesting. So it did have a bigger motor in this. It's got a big boy in there. So at 309 horsepower or 416 foot-pounds of torque. Yeah, that's old school numbers right there, definitely. It's nice. I actually didn't realize it had the bigger motor. Oh my god. So the DMC, baby. The DeLorean. Wow. It's funny, on here, they put it down as a 2004 DeLorean S2. That's interesting. I didn't remember that. But look at that thing. That thing's such an iconic fucking car. It's amazing that it was the popularity of the movie Back to the Future that really definitely pushed this vehicle into that upper echelon of being a legendary vehicle that so many people just fucking loved, man. And yeah, this fucking car, yo, it was technically shit back in the day. People were telling me, like, technically these cars weren't that good. That engine wasn't that good. That transmission wasn't that good. But there's been a lot of people, like, recently I saw one where the dude is technically claimed, or he earned the status of the fastest DeLorean. So he's got a particular V6 with a particular transmission. I think the V6 belongs to one European company, and then the transmission, I believe, belongs to Porsche or whatever. And then combined with the turbo, like, he's pumping out I think they said 600 something horsepower. The way that gentleman has his DeLorean, it's set up as the fastest fucking DeLorean out there. Period. Like, there is a guy, I know a guy that modified one to be able to fit an LS, but the way he set it up, he's got the older transmission that's not, it's one of those, like, if you try to push it, you can damage it and stuff like that. So obviously that's just for show, not for go. Maybe later on somebody else will come around with an appropriate transmission that can go hooked up to an LS, and maybe they can make that faster than this guy. But until then, I mean, this guy fast with that V6. And that's the thing, if you got a good V6 and you tune it the right way and with the right parts, you can produce some good power and get that sucker moving. And then here though, unfortunately, this thing's got 191 horsepower with 205 foot-pounds of torque. Yeah, it's not that much, is it? That's why they were talking about 88 miles an hour, because that was the fastest that thing can go, probably. Well, that's it